And yeah, the article was, I mean, it was. I think it was patently misleading. The people who harp on these things definitely were not athletes. They were not competing and coming up in sports and training with males, because every female, high level female athlete I know understands that the physical differences are there. And bone density of males way higher. Physical strength, muscle mass. Lean muscle mass higher. Body weight higher. Body mass in general, height generally higher. And listen, there are women that are taller, bigger, stronger than certain men, but at the highest level, the men are gonna be bigger, stronger, faster, and be able to perform in metrics that are higher in terms of performance.
Thanks very much for joining me, Chris. I forgot to tell you, I didn't read the book, but I listened to it. I got it. I got the Audible one. And actually, for anyone who doesn't have the time to actually sit down and read a book, it's very good, and it's in sections too, so it's very manageable.
Yeah, very, very, very easy to just chop it up, and it's that kind of book. It's not a straight through read at all.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's very, very digestible. I wanted to have you on there to ask you about what you thought about this an article in the Atlantic. I believe the title was "Segregating Sport by Sex Doesn't Make Sense." Now, to be honest, if it was in like a Huffington Post or a BuzzFeed, I wouldn't even, to be honest, I probably wouldn't even click into it. I just, okay. But very mainstream, very big publication. And usually when the topic of like sex differences in sport gets discussed, at least on kind of a mainstream level, it's generally the trans the whole transport thing, and that muddies it a lot, because you're talking, it often involves hormone replacement. It's just a kind of a landmine subject anyway. So yeah, I wanted to get your thoughts. The author kind of made some broad points and some more specific ones. And yeah, the article, I think at the beginning, was more youth sports, but then a lot of the points weren't for youth. They were for sports generally. So yeah, what did you make of it?
I think we when you had interviewed me last time, I had mentioned something in regards to sex differences in sports, and how men and women are not the same when it comes to athletics and athleticism and just physical performance. And yeah, the article was I mean, I think it was patently misleading. A lot of it, a lot of the initially, like you said, a lot of it is about youth sports, in which case co-ed is fine, because there's not that much difference in terms of physical performance, prior to maturity, basically prior to puberty, really. And in fact, I mean, I remember from my days as a youth martial artist, and getting beat up by the girls when I was 10 or 11 years old, because generally females will physically mature sooner than males do. So the girls were bigger, they were stronger, they were faster. Up until that point, sure, co-ed's fine. I mean, I used to spar with girls in kickboxing and karate. But once puberty hits, it's a whole different world, because performance. And if you look at any kind of peer-reviewed research and data, testosterone plays a huge point in physical performance. That's why it's the number one pet in the world. It's what's we're always worried about when we're talking about people using performance-enhancing drugs. By the age of 14 or 15 years old, the differences in testosterone levels and physical prowess grow dramatically. And if you compare. If we go to track and field, is great, because it's so objective in terms of, you have a set amount of distance, you have a set amount of time, you're getting hard numbers at the end in terms of the performance metrics. So if you compare Olympic level track and field athletes at almost every event, from 200 to 400 to 600 to even to 800 to more, to throwing events, pretty much everything under marathon, the records of the females have been broken by boys who are 14 or 15 years of age. So right there, the argument's pretty much mute. I mean, why would we have the same sex playing the same sport and something like that? We see that in a lot of other sports as well. And it's not just, that those sports aren't contact. So, if you compete, it's just not going to be competitive. Okay. But then when you start talking about actual contact sports, and then you talk about actually safety, bone density of males way higher, physical strength, muscle mass, lean muscle mass higher, body weight higher, body mass in general, height generally higher, and listen, there are women that are taller, bigger, stronger than certain men, but at the highest level, the men are going to be bigger, stronger, faster, and be able to perform in metrics that are higher in terms of performance. And that's not a knock on women. It's just a physical reality.
Yeah. All this all this really isn't to say that that women can't match men in terms of determination, how hard they train,
hard work, discipline,
ability.
nothing. No, not at all. In fact, I've seen a lot of women who work way harder than the men at the highest levels in sports. I've seen that time and time again, and I've seen some of the most disciplined athletes I've ever seen. Some of the most impressive athletes I've ever seen have been women. It's not a knock against them as athletes at all. It's just when you compare the two and understanding that there is a difference, and that's okay. I can't have a baby. I don't have the parts, and that's not a knock on me. It's just I can't do it.
Yeah. Okay. So to almost play the other side, one of the points in the article, the author acknowledged that there are differences beneficial to male of sex and sport, but she kind of says she says, oh well, it's not kind of quite known whether this is more social things like being pushed in sport or physical, and then just kind of leaves the claim hanging there, which is a bit I don't know,
misleading.
Yeah. You can almost say a bit dishonest. Okay, so any thoughts on that? I mean, I'm sure to some degree the prowess in sport, but boys are most certainly encouraged more. That is changing, to be fair, but most certainly encouraged more. There's more, probably more investment support and so on. So yeah, do you think? I mean, probably impossible to put a number on it, but do you think that does play into these like gaps in performance that we see?
Certainly. I mean, but also I could go to the other side and be like, well, I've watched my nephews and nieces and cousins throughout the years, and in terms of what they gravitate to naturally or just on their own tends to be more physical things, more aggressive things. For example, I had a couple of nieces and nephews over, and this is completely anecdotal. And it's, I'm from the top. I am not an expert in this. I just am giving my opinion. That's what you're asking. My nephew was, I think, 6 months younger than my cousin, and she was way more verbal, way more communicative. Had a much deeper vocabulary. But when he jumped on his little tricycle and started going around the room, and then she got on it, the level of coordination was totally different. And it's just one of those things where he wanted to like chase and run and fight, and she wanted to, play with different things. And so how much of it is it society and the ideas? And that's going to be the argument. They go, oh, well, parents push them that way. Well, I don't know. I've seen some kids very, very young ages and who it's much more natural. It's just, that's the way that they tend to go. The boys that I've seen growing up tend to punch each other and hit each other. Girls are not quite that way. Some girls are. And that's going to be the caveat for all of this. So you're always going to be like, well, there's always going to be outliers. There's always going to be, well, some of them are like that. Definitely, society is going to have, there's more opportunities for boys to be athletic. There's usually a lot more money to it involved in it and support in that way. But like you said, that is changing quite a bit. And I think the second half of the part of the article that you're talking about, the professor in neuroendocrinology from Queen's College, I believe is in Toronto or Canada or wherever, said that differences in testosterone are from second to second to month. That is patently misleading, because yes, that's true. Testosterone levels throughout the body are transient, but in very minute levels in terms of what it would take to actually show any kind of difference in physical performance. Men have hundreds of times more testosterone in their body. It's the average male, especially in performance areas, you're looking at between 600, 700 nanometers to like 1,000 to 1,000 plus, where a high level female athlete is going to be like 70 to 100. So yeah, so maybe if there was those base points go up, 10, 20, 50, 100, that, which is a lot to ask for a bump in testosterone. That's not going to make a difference when you got someone who's got 6 times the amount. If you got a male who's got 600, which is sort of in the low end for a high level athlete, he's still going to be 6 times more than even a highest level female athlete when it comes to testosterone. Once again, there are outliers, and there are some women who have very high testosterone levels, but generally very high for a woman's in the low end for a male. You're looking at 250 to 300, where that's actually clinically low for a male. So and that imparts tremendous athletic differences and performance benefits. And then there's even more differences in terms of like just subjectively. VO2 max, men are higher. That is a statistical and objective measure that has been shown across the board. Yes, there are women who can have higher than some men, but at the highest level, men are going to have markedly higher VO2 maxes.
Interesting. Okay, so can you go into a little more on what testosterone actually does? Like why is it?
Mm-hmm.
Why does it make such a difference? Because it does seem to make a huge.
Yeah, testosterone is an androgen that our bodies naturally make. Men and women do produce it. It is, what gives us our secondary sex characteristics, which I think even saying that now is becoming taboo. Sex is, whatever that means. But the fact that you have a beard and the fact that, men have thicker bone density, they have higher levels of aggression, propensity to build lean tissue, to carry less body fat. That's another thing. Females tend to carry more body fat than males. So being able to build lean tissue, hair growth, physical strength, grip strength, endurance capacity, onset of fatigue is delayed with higher levels of testosterone, our body's ability to recover, VO2 max being higher. All these things are affected by your level of your testosterone levels, which is why it's such a great performance enhancing drug. That's why athletes take it, because it helps them in all those ways that really carry over into physical prowess.
Interesting. Very good. Very good. Another more specific point, and again, the author kind of did the same thing where she kind of made a suggestion and just kind of left it hanging there. It was suggested that she said, oh yeah, in certain sports like your own boxing, wrestling, they do weight classes, and she said, oh, maybe this would be a better way instead of segregating by gender. We'll just go by weight, and then just kind of leaves the claim hanging there. This to me, I think, obviously suggests that if you were to have a 150-pound woman, 150-pound man, then somehow the difference is solved. But not the case at all. I think especially if you've ever been in maybe a boxing combat sports gym. Can you speak on that a little bit? Like a 150 man, 150 woman.
Yeah. So that, again, another misleading point that she just kind of walked off on. I just threw it out there. Again, we're not discussing those objectionable differences like bone density, hand-eye coordination. These things matter. But also the people who harp on these things definitely were not athletes. They were not competing and coming up in sports and training with males, because every high-level female athlete I know understands that the physical differences are there, and they will I know high-level female fighters, and they talk about sparring with them, and they're like, oh no, I'm not getting in the ring with you. Like, no, of course not. Because they understand that it's the safety is not, it's dangerous. The highest level female athletes will train with lower level males, sure, and that's fine. And a lot of times that can be really good for them, for both of them, because you've got a higher level in terms of talent and experience with someone who is more green, which is kind of what in gyms we call people who don't have that much experience. You can have a higher level female training with a lower level male, but also size. So you'll have a much bigger female training with a much smaller male. But still, you're never going to see high level male combat athletes training with high level female combat athletes in live training. It's way too dangerous. And I think the females will be the first ones to second that point, and be against that kind of co-ed training. So yeah, it's just, I don't understand why you would want to put these people in danger, because it is a dangerous sport. I mean, it's dangerous for men, and men versus men is extremely, extremely dangerous. And I think male versus females is, it's a level of danger that just doesn't really make sense. I mean, the risk versus reward is not there.
Ask it. Just unrelated, but I was wondering if you had any thoughts. Women's boxing, the most will be for a championship fight would be 10 2-minute rounds. Men of course is 12 threes. I always found that a bit strange, considering in the UFC they do the exact same. They do 3 5s for a non-title or non-main event, and then 5 5s for title or main event. Do you know any insight as to why, or any thoughts on that?
So, from what I understand, most of the women that I train with, and I train with quite a few, are think it's time to go to 3-minute rounds and to even up the rounds in general. And I think there's a few of the organizations are actually okay with that as well, but I believe it might be the WBC that's really steadfast against that. Which that's one that I never really understood. I'm like, well, we're doing the same sport, so and that's a big part of boxing. A lot happens in that last minute of every round. It's much, and I know I work as a sports commentator, and I have to score fights. Scoring a 2-minute round is very difficult. Scoring a 10 times 2-minute round women's championship boxing fight, it leaves a lot of room for some wonky scores, because there's a lot more that can be done. So yeah, I don't understand why that necessarily is. I don't have any inside knowledge, other than the fact that I know that I believe that one of the governing bodies is against upping the number of rounds and also the time of each round. But I'm all for it. I think that they should definitely up the rounds, and it should be equal to the men's.
Interesting. Very good. That was just about everything. Was there anything else about the article that we didn't go over that you wanted to mention, maybe?
I have a few some data from a friend of mine, Dr. Jose Antonio from the ISSN, who had a presentation on this, and it was just saying what I was saying earlier, like in terms of comparing world records and times. We've got 100-meter, 200-meter, and 400-meter. The average boy's age that was beating Olympic level women are age 15 in the 100-meter, 14 in the 200-meter, and 14 in the 400-meter. Wow. So it's like, so you're getting 14-year-old boys. They're boys. You can't even call them men at that point. And they're breaking world Olympic records for females in terms of track and field sprints. Middle distance, more of the same. 800-meter, 14, 1,000, 15 years old. 1,500, 14 years old. With the mile, 15 years old. 2,000-meter, 16 years old. So that's another thing. As you go longer in distance, the age goes up and it comes much, much closer. I believe marathon is almost pretty. It's marathon. You're getting 18-year-old. The males who have beaten the Olympic level are 18. So at that point, it's already a man. But yeah, everything else is 14, 15 years of age. You're seeing boys beating Olympic world record holders. I'm sure you probably read the article or seen that the women's USA soccer team, which is one of the best soccer teams that we've ever seen in female sports, consistently is beaten by 14 and 15-year-old high school soccer clubs. So it just, if you want real competition, if you want to see the nature of true competition, and seeing the best women out there, I think the idea of having co-ed as an adult just doesn't make much sense. You're going to see males breaking records, which we've already seen a touch of, and I think more and more you're seeing governing bodies realizing this is not a good idea. We're kind of male washing. We're washing out the female records with males, and I don't think that's a great idea. But who am I? Who am I to say? Anything? But yeah, there was a bunch of other ones too. Long jump, pole vault, and it's all about the same. 15 years of age. Shot put is another. You've got boys who are beating world class women. So yeah, when you want to look at it like you can say subjectively all these different things, but when you look at the numbers, when you look at the objective data, there really is not much argument.
Very good, very good. And thank you very much. I appreciate it. I appreciate you taking the time. Yeah, I did the article I just found interesting because it was in such a mainstream publication. It wasn't one of these kind of wild, far left, maybe, like there's no such thing as sex and gender. Like, it wasn't one of them.
Right.
Oh, okay. Okay. Just as a parting note, and remind us where we can get the book. Because I listened through it, very good. I couldn't recommend it enough.
Oh, I really appreciate that. Yeah, just Amazon.com. It's So You Want to Be a Fighter, and also my other book, the good book, The Fighter's Kitchen. The Audible, I did read the book myself, which took a long time. So I appreciate people actually listening to the Audible. You get to hear my voice, and I think there's a little more emotion when the author themselves reads it. And plus all the interviews that I did with these fighters, I spoke to them all face to face, just the way we are right now. So you get a little extra oomph when you listen to my actual words rather than reading it. But I'm glad you enjoyed the book and recommend it. Thank you.
Thanks very much, mate. I'll
Yep.
let you go. Thanks for joining me.
Yep, sounds good.